What's up YouTube? I'm back with my first video of 2020 and I'm super excited, and in this video I'm going to be talking about why eBay sucks as a seller, because unfortunately it does. Even though it's a great platform in many ways, it does suck to be a seller on the platform, and in this video I'm going to explain why. But before I get started, I just want to introduce myself to anybody who's new to the channel. My name is Paul Hayward. I'm an e-commerce blogger and YouTuber, and I also ran my own online store for 7 years, so all this stuff does come from first-hand experience of actually being out there doing it and actually having the t-shirt for it as well. So with that said, let's get started. So eBay is one of the biggest online marketplaces in the world, second only to Amazon and possibly like AliExpress in the Far East. But in the Western world, it is the second biggest behind Amazon. But unfortunately, it is losing quite a bit of steam to Amazon and has been consistently over the last few years. And it doesn't help that a lot of eBay sellers are actually leaving the platform. There's a lot of people closing their stores, closing their accounts. I know on one of them, I closed my eBay store back in October because simply it just wasn't paying, it wasn't working. So I decided to cut my losses and just walk away and go and do other things. And I'm going to explain some of the reasons why in this video. The first reason is eBay's return process. It sucks, it simply does, because it takes away any control from you as a seller. Now, eBay has changed their returns process quite a bit over the years since I started selling back in 2012 on the platform. And at the point where they introduced the first stage of their automated returns process, it actually worked pretty well. I did kind of like it because it automatically approved things like if the customer just didn't like it or they just weren't happy with it for some reason, it would automatically approve a return, provide an address to return to, and it worked really, really well. And what you could do back then was if you had any kind of not as described or broken or any kind of ones where you as a seller have to pay return postage, you used to be able to open a dialogue with the customer and kind of talk them through it. And in a lot of cases, for me especially, when it was like item not as described, I just refer them to the item description, and 9 times out of 10 they'd either change the reason why they wanted to return the item, or they just would keep the item, which was great for me because I'd included all the information in my description. But now if you get a item not as described or broken, damaged, anything like that, eBay will automatically approve the return and they will send the customer a returns label to send it back to you. Now that sounds all great in theory, except that it costs you a fortune for this label. Last one happened to me a few weeks ago. I know I said I closed my eBay store, but I've still got some items, just clearing out the last bit of my stock. Somebody opened item not as described, even though they admitted that they just didn't like it, but they opened it as item not as described. I had to pay £3, I think it was £3.20 or £3.50 for a shipping label on an item that I'd sold for £4.79. So I paid a huge proportion of my sale price just to have this shipping label, and it really, really annoys me and annoys a lot of other people. And it's one of the reasons why eBay sucks, because people know that they can do this and they can abuse this process, and a lot of people are abusing this process because they know that eBay just automatically will approve the return, send them a label, and they can post it back, and it's not cost them anything, yet it leaves the seller a lot out of pocket. And it doesn't take many of these a month to really, really start eating into your profits. So that's why the eBay returns process really, really sucks. And I know they've tried to bring it in line with Amazon's one, but all it's done is alienate a lot of their sellers, especially as it's so open for abuse. And talking about open for abuse, the second reason why eBay sucks is scammers. It is so easy to scam on eBay, it is unbelievable. There's lots of scams going on, and there has been for years, but I've noticed over the past few years they have been getting more and more prevalent, especially with things like the eBay returns, because it's so easy to abuse the system. And one of the big ones, especially for higher end goods, is people actually sending the packaging back but keeping the item. I know this has happened a lot with things like jewelry and watches, and even some electronics as well, where the customers kept it, they've sent back the empty packaging, but because it's gone through the eBay system and the Royal Mail system here in the UK, it's registered as being delivered back to you. You have to issue a refund, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it because the customer just says, we returned it, you're out of money, and it sucks. unfortunately it never happened to me, but there's a lot of people I know it has happened to, because I used to sell jewelry on eBay and I used to know a lot of other sellers who've done exactly the same thing, and a lot of people got very heavily scammed in this one. Plus there's lots of other scams, especially item not delivered. That's quite a common one as well, because it's not cost effective to post some things using a track service. You just have to use normal mail, and people who know this and know that they can abuse it will say it's not being delivered even though it has been delivered. I know this has happened to me for a fact, because there's some who it's happened to me and the same buyer has gone to other people and pulled exactly the same thing with them, and honestly there's no comeback. It doesn't matter if you go to the police or anything like that, they just simply don't care. You just have to absorb it as a business, and it sucks. So those are two main reasons why eBay sucks, but there is a lot more. The third thing is it's such an easy barrier to entry that there's so many people who think it's a quick and easy way to make money that there are loads of people selling on eBay. Now, I would imagine people thought about me when I started selling on there, but I've seen the amount of sellers on there grow massively, especially over the last 4 years, because people are trying to make money online. They're trying to have other sources alongside their main job, and it's just made it oversaturated, and there's too many people selling the same product, and all that means is everybody's in a race to the bottom. Example of this is I used to sell gold chains on there, and when I started there was me and 1 or 2 other sellers selling the same item. By the time I come off eBay in October, there was over 10 people selling exactly the same product, and there's just no way to differentiate. All it comes down to is cost, and some of these people obviously don't understand how to run a business, because they was actually selling some of their items at a loss, and people are always going to go for the cheapest item. So that is one of the reasons why it does suck, because it's such an easy barrier to entry. And there's just so many people on there thinking that they can make a quick buck, not understanding how to make money on eBay, so they're not pricing their stuff properly. And it just means for people who have set their business up properly that it's just too many people, and you're just starting to lose money because you just can't compete with these other sellers. The fourth thing following on from sellers is not just that it's such an easy barrier to entry, but eBay have also started to become a global enterprise as well, and basically there's people selling from all over the world. One thing that has been really prevalent and heavily criticized on Facebook pages and business forums is how many Far East sellers, specifically China, are selling on eBay UK. And also I know this is happening on the American eBay site as well. There's a lot of Chinese sellers on there, and the reason why they can sell so cheap is because their shipping is subsidized by the Chinese government. And what this means is that basically they can sell it for cheaper than what you could actually buy it wholesale and import it into the UK for. And it just means that there's absolutely no chance of competing with these sellers, and they're just dominating search results. It's quite common to search on eBay, especially for like cheaper electronics and things like that, and it will be dominated by Chinese based sellers, and there's just very few UK sellers because they just can't compete. And all it's done is basically drove a lot of UK and Western businesses out of business or away from eBay because they just simply cannot compete. The fifth thing is something I did kind of cover to start with, and that is the fact that eBay's market share is slowly shrinking, and what that means is there's actually a fall in traffic on the site. And I noticed this because I sold on there for just over 7 years, and my traffic levels for exactly the same product fell massively, even though I was still appearing in the top 5, top 10 results. The amount of traffic I was getting to my listings just wasn't a fraction of what it was before. And obviously the less people you've got visiting your listings, the less people you're going to have buying from you. And this is just a knock-on effect because it just makes it so it's not profitable for you to stay on the platform, especially when you're factoring in eBay fees as well, because you've got to pay your shop fee, and you've also got to pay listing fees and PayPal fees. And when you're not really making enough even to cover those fees, it just doesn't really work, and it's not a viable thing to stay on the platform, and that's why so many of the sellers are leaving the platform. And the sixth thing is it's really hard to build a brand on the eBay platform because the only thing eBay care about is promoting eBay. They don't care about your individual brand, so they're not bothered about that. They don't care if you can't build a brand, if you can't build outside of eBay, because all they care about is sales coming through eBay. And you can't really blame eBay for that, because that's how they make money. But it would be better if they would allow you more branding things. Yes, you can have a shop which you can customize to a degree. Yes, you've got your store name, but it's still hard to build a brand, especially when they insisted a couple of years ago that you took all your watermarks off. So you wasn't even able to put your branding on your picture. Instead, you just had to have basically really generic looking pictures, and it took away any kind of identity you was able to build for your brand. And this hurt a lot of businesses, and is another reason why a lot of people have left. As you can see, there's a theme of a lot of people leaving eBay at the moment. And the seventh point is kind of following on from that, is that over the past couple of years, a lot of big sellers, big name sellers have joined the eBay platform, and eBay are actively promoting these businesses. Some of the ones I've seen recently have been Argus, Carphone Warehouse or PC World, Currys, all those in that group. Superdry is promoted a lot. There's also a few jewelry brands that have come onto me, and they come into the niche I was selling in, and you notice that these guys were getting pushed to the top, and they was also being promoted on eBay's homepage. And it seems as if that's the way eBay wants to go. It just wants to be a marketplace for big name sellers. They don't seem to care about the small guys. They just want these big names on there. And I think this is because it's easier to promote these guys, because obviously they're bringing brands, the likes of Superdry, Currys bring all the branded electronics, so it's easier for them to promote. But it still sucks as a small seller, because you're not only competing against other sellers who are in the same position as you and foreign sellers, but then you've also got these big boys coming in who eBay are actively promoting. And in some cases, there's some niches where simply people cannot compete, and it's just not fair, because they kind of start on eBay because it was a good way to get their product to the market without having to compete in the likes of Google with these big boys. Now they're having to compete on platforms as well, and it's really not fair, and it's a horrible thing to see happen, especially when it's happening to your business. And the final thing, which is point number 8, is the eBay algorithm, and this is even more of a mystery than the Google algorithm. And literally you can see your listings just drop from being the top few listings into oblivion. I've had this happen quite a few times over the years, from being literally in the top 3-5 search results for quite generic terms. As I said, I used to sell gold chains, and they're quite a lot, and for gold chain, 9 times out of 10 I'd be in that top kind of 5 area, and at my best I actually had 4 listings in the top 10, which was really good. But then eBay had an algorithm change, and literally my listings fell off a cliff. There was one time it happened, I actually went through to page 20 of the search results, and I still couldn't find my listings. Needless to say, I was getting no sales at all, and I went through a really barren period. But then there was another slight eBay algorithm change, and all of a sudden I was back at the top. And it's hard as a business, because you can't predict this is going to happen, and often eBay don't say they're releasing an update, and all of a sudden you notice that you've gone from selling 20-30 things a day to selling none. And for some people this period can last for quite a long time. I've known it happen to people for periods of up to 6 months. I think the worst period I went through was about a 3-month period where I was pretty much having no sales, and it didn't matter what I did, I couldn't get my listings back up in the eBay search results. So it is a mystery, no one understands it. I'm not even sure eBay understand their own algorithm, and it just makes life really unpredictable, because you think you're doing well, you think your business is growing, you invest in new stock, new lines, all of a sudden eBay algorithm change and you're down the bottom, and then you have to try and figure out how to get your listings back to the top, and it causes a lot of stress. And especially, as I say, if you've invested money into stock and you invested your time into the platform, all of a sudden to basically be crapped on by the platform and be sent to oblivion. It does kind of even out, but it's still not fair, because if you're working hard and you're getting lots of sales, you want to stay on that plateau. If you've managed to get your listings in the top 10 and you're selling a lot, you should be able to stay in that top few listings. But due to an algorithm change, all of a sudden you disappear to oblivion. It just sucks, honestly it does, and it's a horrible thing to experience. So that brings me to the end of this video, guys. I just wanted to say this because pretty much yeah, I've had it up to here with the eBay platform. I've put up with a lot of the crap that's been thrown at me over the years, a lot of the changes, but it just got to the point with me where I couldn't deal with it anymore. It just wasn't worth the hassle of dealing with the customers, dealing with eBay, especially when I'm having falling sales, and it just worked out that it just wasn't profitable for me to do it anymore. So I walked away and went on to do other things, which took a lot of the stress off me, and I enjoy it a lot more. So for anybody who is considering selling on eBay, do take these points on board, because this isn't somebody who's just sold on there for a short time. I sold on there, I started in September 2012 was when I made my first jewelry listing, and I closed my store in October 2019. So I was on there for a fair old time, and I went through a lot of changes, and this is all first-hand experience. So think about this before you start on eBay. Also, you want to consider these things if you are selling on eBay and it's your primary source of income. If it is your primary source of income, seriously consider investing time and money in your own site, because it will pay dividends in the long run. And I'm going to be covering more about e-commerce and setting up your own website in the next few weeks. If anybody's interested in checking out any e-commerce reviews or anything like that, check out e-commerce gold. It's my new website that I've been working on quite a lot the last few weeks. And for anybody else, if you don't want to do that, could you please hit that like button, because I would really appreciate it, and it will help me with the YouTube algorithm. I'm confronting a lot of algorithms at the moment, but it will help me with the YouTube algorithm, and I do want to grow this channel, and I want to help more people sell online, grow online businesses, because it's what I've turned out that I actually really enjoy doing. And if you want to see more content like this, then hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because I'm going to be posting regularly on this channel in 2020. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a great time, have a great week, and I'll see you on the next video.